So our first speaker this afternoon is an East-West psychology doctoral candidate, Sami Chhapra. Sami is a psychotherapist in private practice at Mindfulness Counseling in Lakewood, Ohio, and a doctoral candidate in East-West psychology. His dissertation explores the concept of divine love as the foundational reality of existence, emphasizing its collective implications and using a dialectical framework to understand the contours of humanity's collective journey and ultimate destiny. Simultaneously, his therapeutic practice serves as both an extension of this exploration and a practical application of his insights at the individual level. Guided by his personal and professional experiences and the attuned, can you still hear me? Okay, great. And attuned to the broader collective consciousness, Sami is inclined to deepen his engagement with the collective aspects of his work. He is inspired in this undertaking by the visionary contributions of modern thinkers such as Sri Aurobindo, Jean Gebser, and Carl Jung. Sami has a bachelor's degree in religion from Oberlin and a master's degree in contemplative psychotherapy from Naropa. And without further ado, here's Sami.
So I have created some slides for this presentation, but I just want to actually begin with sort of trying to re-enter, that contemplative space. Because my entire presentation today is about accessing these truths and these, ideals that we talk about, in a kind of very detached way, I just want to see if we can enter them, and feel them, and then let it guide us, rather than imposing our already determined thoughts, and ideas. So, but I have some slides to kind of just have some kind of a ground, because we need that, and some kind of general direction. So, let's see. So this is from Sri Aurobindo, Life Divine. There is a truth to know, a work to do. The truth is the presence of God in us and the world. The work is to express, embody, become that in life and action. And I mean, everything can be boiled down to that, really, yeah, and the title of the talk, Awakening to Inherent Sustainability, Embracing the Divine Self Through the Integral Vision of Sri Aurobindo. It's like, what is more sustainable than the divine, right? And if the divine is an ever-present reality, then why are we overly concerned about not making it, or destroying ourselves, or messing it up in some way, And I think my basic feeling and idea is that we can't mess it up, because at the base, we are the divine, So how do we actually take that seriously enough so that we can let it inform our, actions and our next moves and our receptivity to what is happening, So that's why it's an awakening to inherent sustainability. And everything that I've read, I mean, when I first got the, email for this conference, I thought this was what I was going to talk about. And then I saw that when I saw the description of the conference, I was like, well, yes, of course. So everyone is pointing to this and talking about this, this inherent sustainability. So I've got a few things. I don't even know. I mean, everyone knows this stuff, but I just don't know if I should read it out for the audience. Huh? Yeah. So, humans are a transitional species. This is, comes from Sri Aurobindo and The Mother. And the next evolutionary leap would be towards a supramental being. And a supramental consciousness, is characterized by a direct perception of the truth, seeing unity, and sort of embodying a sort of a consciousness beyond the mind, beyond this human, mind. So, and through integral yoga, one could align with this higher consciousness and bring about this inner transformation, effectively channeling the potentialities of the future into the present state of being. And the future over here, I don't know if Sri Aurobindo talks about it in terms of an eternal future, but one of his students, Archaka, whose book, The Images of the Future, he repeatedly alludes to it as an eternal future, right? That our responsibility and our opportunity is to actually bring that into the present. And the water, excuse me for a second. The mother talked about making her body receptive to the force of the supramental consciousness. I don't do this very often. A process for realizing and embodying inherent sustainability. It's just about embodying it. And I think when she's talking about her body, she's maybe also at some level referring to the collective body, her body as the collective body, the earth, the planet, and everything in it. So, how do we access this, right? And so I think one of the key aspects of integral yoga is the emphasis on silence and contemplation. And it's not the contemplation of the mind, it's more akin to what the mother talks about in terms of a slight indication, of that still, quiet voice, of the inner being. And I think that is, it's so vast, right? The supramental has so many levels and vastness to it that you can't grasp it whole, obviously. And you can't, but I don't describe this to my clients in this way, but I talk about how when the mind is at rest, you can come to rest in that vastness, and just feeling it is reassuring. You don't have to understand all of it, you can't understand all of it, but you can at least feel it, feel the truth of it, and feel the reassurance of it in each moment, and then let that gradually inform all the egoic identities that you have. And so it's not about claiming anything, it's about knowing it, it's about experiencing it, so that it can inform your response to what you see. So so for Sri Aurobindo, the mind's chatter and the ceaseless flow of thoughts often obscure deeper truths. By attaining inner silence, one can access a higher, more intuitive knowledge that arises from deeper within or above the ordinary mental consciousness. The silent mind becomes a portal to the psychic being or the soul, the true self. And this innermost essence remains concealed behind the noise of the mind, emotions, and desires. And silence enhances receptivity. When the mind and heart are still, they become more capable of receiving the descending force or guidance of the divine. This is especially important in Sri Aurobindo's method, where there's an emphasis on surrender and opening to the higher force, the supramental descent. I think we've talked about that. So some core tenets of the integral vision are, the divinization of daily life, which is, I had not come across that anywhere else in the manner that I've read it in Sri Aurobindo's writings. And then the involution before evolution. So the involution is the process by which the supreme consciousness descends and veils itself, embedding or involving itself into matter. And once this involution is complete and the divine consciousness is fully concealed within the densest form of material existence, the reverse process, which we commonly understand as evolution, begins. And evolution is the journey of the concealed divinity or spirit re-emerging from its hidden state within matter and leading eventually to its complete self-realization by way of conscious divine beings, which we are in the process of embodying and becoming. And so a key tenet of this vision is also the coming of the supramental consciousness, a state of being beyond the current mental understanding. I feel like we've sort of gone over this. And this transformation will lead to a new type of human being, a post-human supramental being, and a divine life on earth. How much time do I have? 10 more minutes? And then 10 minutes of discussion and Q&A? Okay, cool, thank you. Yes, I mean, there is a book. Okay, so this is the part about making not making, but discovering that the eternal future is present. At least I hope this is that. So anyway, I'm just going to read this because it's a longer quote. It is therefore in terms of evolution and no longer of mysticism that the first distinctive character of the new beings will reside. They will have no ego. And this is why I don't know if I agree with that because, but maybe he's talking about a more advanced state of this. And this is why it can be said that from the first moment, they will be united with the eternal and infinite, conscious of him, enlightened. The divine plan will be to read in them as on a screen, capturing the images of an unimagined dimension. They will cause the gods to descend to earth. Each will be, so to speak, the seed of a god, and none will have preeminence over the others. All will participate in a single work, which will be to increasingly enlighten us and increasingly enable the materialization of the eternal future. As was said earlier, our understanding will certainly not be immediate. It may even be that individual and collective opposition will be aroused and that a climate of conflict such as we have never before known would result. But this reaction of our native ignorance will be quelled by the peace ensuing of the knowledge which is promised to us. Thus, we shall accept the evidence and allow ourselves to be guided by the shining multitude of the beings we will have engendered. Once again, their number and their ubiquity will be the most manifest signs of new times. If there were to be but a single divine being incarnating among us, and even were his stature to greatly surpass that of our greatest avatars, one could not really speak of a new phase in the history of evolution. We would receive a new spiritual teaching, which would enable us to continue our journey in the name of an ideal more elevated than all those that we have heretofore conceived. And this would already be a great deal, but that is not here the question. It is a matter of the spontaneous opening of a higher level of consciousness in the human species. It will no longer belong to the Son of God to lead us towards this or that dwelling place in the house of his Father. And our spiritual goal will no longer be situated after death. We shall see the manifold birth and growth of God among us. The meaning of the revelation made to us will change insofar as it will no longer be asked of us to believe what we do not see or acknowledge a reality which nothing proves. On the contrary, we shall see everywhere the spirit opening out in matter and shall understand that the same fate is reserved for us and that a still higher destiny is to be fulfilled on earth. I mean, that's an incredible vision. And, I'm actually really feeling like it's happening now, like what's the delay? We are here and we have access and we have the conditions. Like the more that things become difficult in the environment, the more of a signal it feels to me, of these truths. It's paradoxical. It's by the opposite that it's actually telling us about its reality. And that's something that we can come to when our egos are not freaked out, or even if they are freaked out, we're not attached to that. We sink in and drop into the self, and so we're not freaked out anymore. So, right, and then this is a quote from the Synthesis of Yoga where Sri Aurobindo talks about how this expression, in individuals, in different jivas, is dependent on, I think it's the uniqueness of the jiva and the plan of the supermind, to determine what the expression is going to be in that particular form. So this is that quotation. I don't know if I should read it. Read it? Okay. It must be remembered that there is always a difference between the supreme supermind of the omniscient and omnipotent Ishvara and that which can be attained by the jiva. The human being is climbing out of the ignorance, and when he ascends into the supramental nature, he will find in it grades of its ascension. And he must first form the lower grades and limited steps before he rises to higher summits. He will enjoy there the full essential light, power, ananda of the infinite self by oneness with the spirit. But in the dynamical expression, it must determine and individualize itself according to the nature of the self-expression which the transcendent and universal spirit seeks in the jiva. It is God realization and God expression which is the object of our yoga, and more especially of its dynamic side. It is a divine self-expression in us of the Ishvara, but under the conditions of humanity and through the divinized human nature. 5 minutes, 10, 5. Okay, the mother question and answers. So this is where she talks about how do you discern the voice of this inner being and this deeper, reality from the ego's, monkey sort of mind. And so she says that, you have to be sincere, you have to be really honest with yourself. And you have to not be afraid of this monkey that resides inside of you. It's okay. And it's actually a kind of training program or a coach. It's sort of strengthening your capacity to hear the signal in the noise. And so it's very helpful in that regard. And so so it's, if you are sincere, if we are sincere, then we can hear those sort of slight indications that she says. We know what is being communicated. So, and the mother on Aurobindo. So I was talking to Dave Deep about this. That this whole, like what I've been hearing about what's happening in Aurobindo, it feels to me like Aurobindo will not achieve the kind of fulfillment of its vision until the world until the world becomes that Aurobindo. I don't think Aurobindo is meant to just become this utopia surrounded by chaos. I think the whole world is meant to become that utopia, and it'll happen together. It's not that Aurobindo will first become the utopia and it'll then become a model that everyone else will want to emulate. I think it'll just happen, together. So I just wanted to put this upon, in here, just as kind of a way to talk about that. And then this is a photograph of me when I was 1.5. And, you know, I don't know if you can immediately see it, but there's something over my head. And it's, you know, this is a scan of the negative that I discovered in 2013. But I first discovered this photograph and what's over my head in this photograph in 2000. And I wanted to put it here because, you know, it's only kind of very recently, even though I've been journeying with this for like 23, 24 years, that, you know, people, when they see it, they can really see what's there, you know. And Debashish was the first person to really understand this, you know, and we had a wonderful chat over Zoom 3 months ago, you know, and so, you know, this is kind of been a sign to me of, you know, obviously it's like the spiritual world revealing itself concretely. This is how I see it, you know, and there's a tremendous reassurance in that. At least there has been for me, you know, and it came to me also as a reassurance, because I was, you know, beginning to see these beings sitting in a psychiatrist's office because people thought I was like insane or something and they wanted me to go see a psychiatrist. And so I was sitting in the waiting area room, praying, contemplating, meditating. And that's the first time that I saw these spiritual beings, you know. And this is precisely what I told my psychiatrist. I just saw these spiritual beings and these people think I'm crazy and they want me to come and see you. And they're like, and he said to me, you're not nuts. You're just very creative and they don't understand you, you know? So that was reassuring. But my family did not agree. And so I ended up in the hospital. And after I came out of the hospital, I discovered this photograph. So it actually did come to me as a reassurance, you know? And I think, you know, I think it's like, it's an emergence of some kind, you know, it's a penetration into our mental rational structure. You know, it's sort of an intersection of science and spirituality. And, you know, I think it has, it can be helpful, you know, to understand some of the implications of this as we kind of do our collective exploration, you know, of what this is and how we can actually move forward, given our present, you know, reality. And so this is the final slide. Our life's uncertain way we hardly scan. All we have learned from earth to hold it sure. But to the Godhead of our hidden souls, life is the ceaseless birth of endless powers. You know, and this, I think, just points to the fact that we're on a kind of need to know basis, you know, and we can be somehow surprised by what emerges from our depths. So anyway, with that, I think I'll end. Thank you.
Sami,
Yes, sir.
this may not be a good question for you, but you're there, so I'll ask it. I was listening to the last presentations on Zoom, and the question I had is about Aurobindo and whether Aurobindo is really necessary and needed for the supramental consciousness that Sri Aurobindo talks about to happen.
Well, I mean, I don't know if that question is even applicable. I mean, I'm not the right person, I don't think, to answer that, but I want to take a stab at just responding to it, you know, is that, you know, it's an expression of it. It's not like, it's not about needing it or not needing it. It's an expression of it, right?
Well, that's really why I'm asking it, because I was listening to this expression, and I know a little bit about the history of Aurobindo,
Yeah,
and all the difficulties it goes through.
of course.
And I'm wondering, what kind of expression is this? Is the supramental this really complex and difficult?
Well, it's the ride we signed up for, you know. It's the ticket we paid for. Like we're getting our money's worth. This is how I see it, you know? And I think the resistance and the chaos is actually an unconscious way of really savoring this part of this journey. Because when it's gone, when the confusion is gone, the fun goes away also. It can get very boring to be divine. It can, and I think it does, which is why I think it's cyclical, you know? I know it's painful and it's horrible at times, but because we can always, because it's not final, you know, none of the chaos or the problems are ever final. No yucky internal state is ever final. We can always just kind of come back to the ground. You see, the eternal, ever-present ground. And that's always a relief. And we can experience that intermittently until we can collectively live there for a while, you know, and then again go off on some other adventure yet to be determined. Or who knows, you know, I don't know. But does that answer your question somehow?
Has brought this question to my mind, which I've never had this before. So I am wrestling with it, and I'm listening to you and other presenters because I never thought, well, I don't know what I really thought about how the supramental was really going to fully express itself. But I certainly did not imagine that it was going to fully begin to express itself in the nature of all the struggles and difficulties that Aurobindo has had with people who have lived there, with the external community, and with the country of India.
Sure, yeah. I mean, yeah. I can't imagine it just being plonked in and it's just being perfect and, you know, just like with no trouble or with no resistance or with no confusion. I mean, that would be unrealistic and kind of boring, you know.
Somebody, I'll get you next, Glenn.
Just to the question of Aurobindo, Mother said that Aurobindo will be the cradle of the Superman. So, well, if she says so, it must be so. So there is an experiment going on. Of course, it stirred a lot of things underground, which came to the surface to be seen, to be enlightened, and as and I don't think it is an easy task. It's like for a monkey to become a human being, you know, or even more so. So the difference is so huge. So there will be steps, there will be problems to solve, to see, to deal with, and that's all coming to the surface now. We see who we are underneath, yeah? We know what we are dealing with. It's that inherited past, evolutionary past, which we are dealing with, not only ours, but of the whole nature. It's all wanting to reach out to this light. By the way, the Second World War, which was here, beautiful presentation, was also a kind of response of the darkness to the pressure of light. So, and integral yoga is never one-way ticket. It's always up and then it's down, breathing in and breathing out. The higher you reach, the deeper you dive. And so we have to take the depth of the inconscient to the surface, to the light, to transform. Yeah. It's not an easy path. So in that sense, the answer is quite obvious.
Thank you, Vladimir.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much, Sami. Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, it seems to me, going along this theme, that, you know, Aurobindo is an important place. The California Institute of Integral Studies is a very important place. And there's direct attention being presented. There's a conscious effort to usher in the supramental age. But I was struck by your confident statement that the supramental is here. And I very much agree with you. So it's a question of, whether it's realized, And I agree with you that the supramental is not going to just float down to Aurobindo and California Institute of Integral Studies. I mean, in a sense, it's here on this entire earth, or where it needs to be. And I think you also said that Aurobindo will change when the world changes.
Yeah.
That's what you said, right? And that was very interesting. It was because I think you were implying that Aurobindo wasn't just simply a model for everybody else to follow. I think those were your words, right? And that was interesting because it was evocative to me, because it reminded me of something Leroy Littlebear, a dear mentor to me, said when he went to Yellowstone Park and he was entering the park. And Leroy's a Blackfoot. He's from the Kainai tribe, the Blackfoot Confederacy. He lives up in Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada. But originally, the Blackfoot territory came down all the way to the Yellowstone River. So it's a very sacred place for him within all places. So he asked the park ranger at the entrance, he said, is Yellowstone a model for how we're supposed to do things so that the rest of the nation and world can follow suit? Or is Yellowstone a place where you conserve so that we can destroy everything else? Of course, the park ranger didn't have a ready answer. He probably never was asked a question like that before. But I think that's kind of what you're getting to,
Well, I mean, the mother said that she wanted, she thought of it as something that would accelerate, right, the descent of the supramental. That would accelerate this evolution.
Yeah, and it might be that places like the California Institute of Integral Studies and Aurobindo do accelerate that evolution, because we also surface, all the problems surface at the same time, and then we have to deal with them. And I think that's what Vladimir has pointed to many times. So thank you very much for your presentation. It's inspiring, especially your heart. Thank you.
Any other questions? Any online questions? Okay.
Devashish, thank you, Devashish.
Since you put me on the spot a little bit
Yes.
about your photograph.
Yes.
So I just wanted to bring to attention what I thought was so beautiful and special about that photograph, and how it relates to your entire talk, which is that the higher spiritual energy is pressing down on us. Yeah, we may see it or not see it, but it is there, and it is under certain circumstances, it exhibits or expresses itself, and we can see it. We don't know when that will happen, but it is doing that. And there's something in us that responds to it, and that's the psychic being. And I think the question of how we embody it and deal with it in this life of difficulties from day to day, as you said, the everyday quotidian life,
absolutely,
is exactly that beautiful gesture of you as a child doing this,
Well, it's a reaching out, right?
It's putting out. It's really, it's extending, it's receiving and extending with that, the full confidence of, I'm giving it to you, right? And the more we can do that, receive it and do that, that creates the world. That's
right. And it happens all the time. It's available. Thank you, David.